Karen Whitfield stood on her pristine front lawn at 6:47 a.m., measuring the height of her neighbor's American flag with a retractable tape measure while still wearing her lavender silk robe and fuzzy slippers. The flag, hanging proudly outside Captain Marcus Thompson's modest ranch home, was exactly 14 3/4 inches too high according to the Willowbrook Estates HOA guidelines she'd memorized like scripture. "Gotcha," she whispered triumphantly, snapping photos with her phone from 3 different angles. 20 minutes later, she was pounding on Captain Thompson's door with the fury of someone who'd just discovered a crime against humanity. When the door opened, revealing a tired-looking man in army fatigues, clearly preparing to leave for duty, Karen thrust a freshly printed violation notice toward his chest. "Your flag is in direct violation of Section 4.2 of our community standards," she announced, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Maximum height is 6 feet from ground level. Yours is 6 feet, 14 3/4 inches. I measured." Captain Thompson, a man who'd served 2 tours in Afghanistan and handled insurgent attacks with legendary calm, simply stared at the woman before him. His neighbor of 3 years had never once acknowledged his service, never waved hello, never even made eye contact during their brief encounters at the mailbox. Now she stood on his doorstep at dawn, criticizing the symbol he'd nearly died defending. "Ma'am," he said quietly, his voice carrying the measured tone of someone accustomed to de-escalating volatile situations, "I hung that flag at regulation height. Army regulation." "This isn't the Army, Captain," Karen shot back, practically spitting his rank like a curse word. "This is Willowbrook Estates, and I'm the HOA compliance officer. Your military rules don't supersede our property values." The words hung in the air like smoke after explosion. Captain Thompson's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, a reaction Karen completely missed in her self-righteous fury. "You have 48 hours to correct this violation or face a $500 fine," she continued, waving the notice like a weapon. "And before you try to play the veteran card, remember that everyone in this neighborhood sacrificed to live here. Your service doesn't make you special." As she turned to march back across the street, her robe billowing behind her like a battle flag, Karen felt the intoxicating rush of authority coursing through her veins. She'd spent 5 years climbing the HOA ladder, from concerned resident to board member to compliance officer, and moments like these reminded her why the climb had been worth it. What Karen didn't notice was Mrs. Chen from 2 houses down, quietly watering her garden while recording every word with her smartphone. She also missed the cluster of neighbors who'd gathered on their porches, drawn by Karen's theatrical performance. Most importantly, she failed to see the small gold star hanging in Captain Thompson's window, the symbol of a family who'd lost someone in service to their country. The flag would come down. Karen was certain of it. After all, she'd never lost a compliance battle yet. By Thursday evening, Karen was scrolling through Facebook with growing unease, watching a video that had somehow accumulated 2.3 million views in less than 18 hours. The grainy phone footage showed her in her ridiculous robe, gesticulating wildly while a uniformed soldier stood at attention on his own doorstep, taking her verbal assault with the patience of a saint. "Your service doesn't make you special," her recorded voice echoed from her laptop speakers, the words sounding even more venomous in replay. The comments section was a digital firing squad. Thousands of Americans, veterans, military families, and civilians alike were expressing their outrage in terms that made Karen's ears burn. Someone had identified Captain Thompson as a Purple Heart recipient who'd lost his younger brother in Kandahar. Another comment revealed that the gold star in his window was for his fallen sibling. Karen's phone had been ringing nonstop since Tuesday. First came the reporters, local news stations wanting statements, national outlets seeking interviews. Then the neighbors began calling, their voices ranging from disappointed to furious. The HOA board scheduled an emergency meeting for Friday night, and Karen could read between the lines of their carefully worded email. But it was the phone call from her own daughter, Sarah, that finally cracked her armor. "Mom, what were you thinking?" Sarah's voice was thick with tears. "My co-workers are showing me this video. My friends from college are texting me. Do you realize what you've done? I was enforcing the rules, Karen replied, but her voice lacked its usual conviction. The same rules everyone agreed to follow when they bought here. He's a war hero, Mom. He lost his brother, and you told him his service doesn't matter. For the first time in 5 years, Karen found herself questioning whether she might have made a mistake. The feeling was foreign and deeply uncomfortable, like wearing shoes on the wrong feet. Friday's HOA meeting was standing room only, with local news crews positioned outside the community center. Karen arrived to find Captain Thompson sitting in the front row, flanked by a dozen other veterans who'd driven in from across the county to support him. The room fell silent as she walked to her designated seat, her heels clicking against the tile floor like a countdown timer. Board President Helen Martins called the meeting to order with unusual formality. "We're here to address recent events that have brought unwanted attention to our community," she began, her eyes fixed on Karen. "Events that may have violated not just our community spirit, but our basic human decency." Karen listened as resident after resident took the microphone to voice their support for Captain Thompson and their dismay at her actions. When her turn came to respond, she stood slowly, her prepared defense suddenly seeming inadequate. "I was doing my job," she said, her voice smaller than usual. "The rules exist for a reason." Captain Thompson rose from his seat and walked to the microphone. The room held its breath as he adjusted the height and looked directly at Karen for the first time since Tuesday morning. "Ma'am," he said in that same measured tone, "I want you to know that flag isn't just decoration to me. It flew over my brother's casket when we brought him home. I fly it at the height he would have wanted, proud and high." The silence that followed was deafening. Karen felt something crack inside her chest, a sensation she couldn't quite identify. It might have been shame or recognition, or the first stirring of genuine remorse. "I'd like to make you an offer," Captain Thompson continued. "Instead of taking down my flag, what if we worked together to create a memorial garden for our community's veterans, a place where we could honor service and sacrifice properly?" The crowd erupted in applause, but Karen barely heard it. She was staring at this man she tried to humiliate, watching him extend grace she didn't deserve. The board unanimously approved Thompson's proposal and quietly accepted Karen's resignation as compliance officer. As the meeting dispersed, Karen lingered in her seat, watching Captain Thompson shake hands and accept thanks from fellow veterans. She'd spent 5 years believing that control and authority made her important. Tonight, she was learning that true leadership looked entirely different. The viral video would continue spreading, ensuring Karen's 15 minutes of infamy would stretch much longer. But as she finally stood to leave, she found herself wondering if there might be a way to transform her public humiliation into something resembling redemption. The Memorial Garden project would need volunteers after all.